Is it humility or is it fear? Is it humility that is causing us to put ourselves in the background, or is it fear? Recently, I had an experience where God showed me the difference. So, for years, I thought I was being humble when I was actually being afraid. And it was that anxiety masquerading as humility, which has been probably the greatest limiting factor in my calling. And I can't help but wonder if there are other Christians who are struggling with the same thing. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the three things. Number one, the lie that was keeping me stuck for years. Number two, why Christians with a calling, and by the way, I believe that all Christians have a calling, so let's just put that out there right now. But why Christians with a calling are especially prone to this kind of anxiety. And spoiler alert, it's because the enemy can use it to then dim our light. But I'll explain why. And three, one simple practice that you could start practicing today to help anxiety loosen its grip on your life and on your calling. Because this isn't just about feeling less anxious. This is about whether we are going to let fear shrink what God is trying to do in us and through us. So, for years, I struggled with confusion about this topic. I might boldly say something, and then I'd be like, did I say too much? When you're starting a YouTube channel or a podcast, you boldly say something, and then you accuse yourself, did I say too much? And it did not help that sometimes when I would boldly say something to somebody, I would sometimes hear, how can you say that so confidently, so certainly? And I thought, am I wrong? Am I right? Is this pride? It doesn't feel like pride. And maybe there's an area in your life where you feel that too. As in, there are moments when you, with courage, you say something, or with courage, you do something. And then afterwards, you get criticized, and you're like, wait, was it right to do that? Was it wrong to do that? Or was I just being different and others are not used to that version of me yet? Listen carefully because I think you're going to see yourself in that second piece, okay? So here's the story. Recently, I walked into a new Sunday school class all by myself. Now, if you know me very well, that is the stuff my nightmares are made of. People are always surprised when I share that. They're like, April, you seem so confident. And I'm like, well, yes, I've practiced acting what I call normal for years. So I've gotten a lot of reps in. But underneath, there's always this fear, this old sentence, I'm too much. And so when I walked in, I smiled, I slowed my breathing, I spoke calmly, I ran all the internal scripts. Class started, the teacher started asking questions, and then something happened. I forgot about my anxiety and I started enjoying myself. And I got excited to share what God had shown me about that particular passage that that class was talking about that Sunday. And so I contributed, spoke up, I listened. There was a moment even when I especially felt the Holy Spirit's presence, like this is how it's meant to be. We Christians together sharing our mutual joy of the Lord with each other, wanting to learn with each other, wanting to learn from each other. It was just a whole moment. And it was beautiful. But then later that night, the familiar thing happened. That old part of me said, did you talk too much? Did you take up too much space? And I so wanted to reach out to somebody and say, hey, was I too much? I wanted assurance that I wasn't too much. But that wasn't me. That's not conviction. That was my old anxiety masquerading as fake humility. So, anxiety can look holy, and here's how. We tend to define humility like this: let others go first. Don't sound so certain. Don't stand out. Don't take up too much space. But that's not actually humility. Humility is simply the attitude, the willingness to learn. So when I was speaking up in class, I was demonstrating humility, as in, I am so excited to share what I've learned, and I want to hear what you've learned, and maybe what I've learned will help you. And all together, we can learn more and enjoy this. I was sharing what I had learned, and I was completely open to others sharing and sharpening what I had learned. That is humility. And I have to remind myself that is humility. It may be clothed in excitement because I love learning so very much, but it actually is humility. But anxiety sounds different. Anxiety says, please tell me if I fit in. Please tell me if I'm doing it right. Please tell me if I violated a hidden rule, or that I didn't violate a hidden rule. Please tell me if this is what is expected of me. Please assure me that I'm okay. So, practicing anxiety for honestly decades of my life, taught me how to act humble, but it wasn't true humility. It made me self conscious. And here's the problem with that. So, anxiety doesn't produce humility. Anxiety produces self consciousness that then makes us want to shrink and act humble. So, the danger of anxiety is this: it doesn't just steal our peace, but it actually it limits our ability to obey. Because sometimes obedience is going to require boldness. And boldness is really hard to access when we are being anxious. So, the sentence that was shrinking my calling, that old sentence of I'm too much, was shaping my life in more ways than I realized. Because if I'm too much, then I can't do much. I better not do much. I better quiet down. If I'm too different, then I better conform. I bet it'd be better to blend in. When we believe we're doing too much, we are going to stop doing much at all. When we believe that we are too much, then we are going to be afraid to be different, to believe, to say, to speak the different. We are going to be afraid to make a difference in this world that is so desperately hungry for the difference that only we can bring. So, this anxiety that produces this fake humility has us limited in our ability to shine. It has us limited in our ability to allow the Holy Spirit to take over in our life. It has us limited in our ability to reflect the glory of God in our unique way. The anxiety that produces fake humility not only has us hiding, it has us hiding Him. It has us not shining our light, hiding the glory of God that we were meant to reveal. Because Christians are especially prone to this. Christians have, every Christian has a calling, and that calling is simply stated to glorify God in all that you do. And if we're so anxious about what we're doing and how we're doing and why we're doing it, then we are not going to be glorifying God in all we're doing. We're going to be doing in spite of our self consciousness. So, the fake humility. that is produced by our anxiety will have us conforming instead of transforming. It will have us hiding instead of boldly standing up. It will have us looking at others and asking, did I do a good job? Yes or no? Instead of looking to our master and saying, I did that for you. Is there anything you'd like to show me about it? Humility, remember, has us willing to learn. But sometimes, most of the time, maybe all the time, maybe most of the time, our learning needs to come from a higher teacher. It needs to come from Jesus' example. It needs to come from the prompting of the Holy Spirit in our lives. It needs to come from the love of the good Father that has called us. Look, our fellow Christians, they are sometimes not being evil when they're telling us to be careful. They're being careful because maybe they are struggling with this same sense of anxiety. So, I am not saying throw caution to the wind. I am saying that iron sharpens iron. An anxious knife is going to sharpen somebody towards more anxiety. I have just seen this. The reason why it was so hard for me to find that limiting sentence in my life of I'm too much is because for so many years I have been attending churches and living in spaces where I'm surrounded by other Christians who believe the exact same thing. Where you're in the bubble with everybody else, you're just not going to find it. But when you step out of the bubble, it's pretty scary too, because it's like, whoa, is there anybody else out there like me? And the answer is yes. But some of us have to go first. Some of us have to allow our Christian calling distinctiveness to feel weird to other people. All right, so maybe I do come off as weird, and maybe you do too. So, our calling is broadly to glorify God in our unique way. Think about it like this. Think about, like, if you had to imagine what God looks like, how would you even begin to do that? He is so much above us, but we are created in his image. So, in my imagination, that means that we are all bearing this unique facet of his amazing brilliance. And that is why we are called to shine our light. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and, as a result of that, glorify your Father which is in heaven. Let's say there's a billion Christians in the world. That's a billion different lights, all reflecting a billion different facets of the brilliance of God. Together, it's sheer brilliance. And individually, it's unique brilliance. How do you feel when I say that? When I say maybe what you are labeling as weird, different, that part of you that is creating anxiousness in your life might actually be the flip side. It might be your brilliance. Can you get on board with that? Can you believe that what I'm seeing as a flaw might actually be a facet of the brilliance of God's image that's that he is calling me to bear and to live out and to work from for his honor and for his glory. All of this being divinely worked out in the power of Christ and through the sanctifying power of his Holy Spirit that is working in each of us. So those fruit of the Spirit, the love, the joy, the peace, the gentleness, the patience, the meekness, the self-control, the faith, we've got to let those things out in our life a little bit more. Excuse me. That sentence that I am currently working on replacing, I'm too much. The Lord gave me a new sentence. And I had to share all this about the anxiety and actual humility because this next sentence is not going to sound very humble, but I'm going to show you how it produces humility. This sentence, instead of thinking, I'm too much, I replace that sentence with this sentence, I appreciate me. Now, for all of those reasons that I just said. So, number one, I appreciate my willingness to do the hard things. I appreciate that despite my social anxiety, my younger self has practiced walking into many, many rooms where she felt afraid, and she's gotten better at it. And so that made me able to walk into this room today, the other day. I appreciate that I took the time to study this passage and I had something to contribute. Despite my discomfort, I was willing to contribute. There was something beautiful that came out of my willingness to be uncomfortable and to get over myself and to deal with my self-consciousness. Even when the old anxiety attacked me late at night and said, "You're too much," I was willing to sit with that and say, "Lord, show me a better way." God did. I appreciate that all of this works together, not only to produce a new heart, to transform me, to renew my mind, but it also gives me an opportunity to create a video in case there's even just one other person out there that might be struggling in the exact same way that I'm struggling. And if that person is you, this is my practice that I want to share with you. Take that sentence in your own life of "I'm too much" and replace it with a better sentence. I appreciate that. I appreciate me. I appreciate that God is still working in me. I appreciate that God is showing me aspects that He created in me that I see as flaws, not as facets of His brilliance yet. The only reason that I was able to get to this point is because for so long I've been meditating on those two greatest commands that Jesus shared. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second one, love your neighbor as yourself. See, if we are either loving our neighbor as ourselves or we are judging our neighbor against ourselves. For years, I was in the space of judging my neighbor against myself so I could feel better or so that I knew that I need to straighten up and get better. And so I was trying to produce out of the flesh better works of righteousness. But I had it all backwards. I was working from the back end. I was trying to compare myself to other Christians to see if I was okay, yes or no. And that's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying, go to the Father. Love the Lord your God. Get a fresh glimpse of Him. Get rooted in His strength. Get rooted in His power. Get rooted in His abundance. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength. And then, filled up with that unconditional love, me saying I'm too much is not me being filled up with that unconditional love. That is saying, well, Lord, you can love 90% of me, but this last 10%, I don't want you to love that. I don't love that, so I don't think that you can possibly love it either. Let God in to love that so that He can transform it. So, filled up with love, as much love as you can possibly handle. We probably can't handle as much as we think we can. but we always get to be expanding in our capacity. And then we get to share that love with others. And by the way, shared love doesn't feel heavy. That's what I realized about Galatians 6:2. It says, bear you one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ, which, by the way, the law of Christ is the love of Christ. That's why Jesus said the two greatest commandments: love God, love your neighbor as yourself. And we just really struggle with what love might look like. Well, it looks like anxiousness, pretending to be humble. No, humility looks like willingness to learn. Humility looks like me willing to, just to compare these side by side, humility looks like me willing to make mistakes, because in making the mistakes, I will learn how to do it better. Anxiety looks like me saying, no, I will sit back and let others who are more qualified go ahead and do the thing and say the thing and make the video. And because I don't want to make a mistake, because if I make a mistake and somebody criticizes me, I will be undone. It will destroy me. I will be increased in self-consciousness, and I am too self-conscious to allow myself to make a mistake, even if that mistake might learn to me learning more or learning better or learning deeper. That's why I'm saying anxiety produces fake humility. It says others should go, others who are more qualified. But how in the world are we supposed to get this qualification if we won't first adopt the humility, the true humility of I am willing to learn in the doing of the thing? I can't help but think of Peter at this point, willing to step out of the boat, take a few steps in faith, and then sink like a log. But it's okay. He was walking towards Jesus. And when you're walking towards Jesus, even when you make a mistake, Jesus is catching you. And it becomes, even your mistakes become an opportunity for God to be glorified. Peter's mistake becomes one of the greatest lessons in active humility for us. We get to go back to that story over and over again and remind ourselves what it actually looks like for us to walk with humility. And walking with humility might look like us walking a few steps on the water, performing the miraculous, maybe falling down, getting wet. That's okay. Jesus is there to catch us. And isn't that the best person to catch us? All of this came out of a simple story about me being afraid and sharing with you that I was afraid to walk into a Sunday school class, which sounds so mundane. But it was just the most recent example that highlighted that long living lie in my mind of I'm too much. And you know what? Just for full disclosure, I'm going to turn off this video, and 100% I am going to be attacked with that same thought. Whoa, was that too much? Maybe. But I'm learning to appreciate that God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. And so I will leave all of these moments in the video in the hopes that maybe they will give you too the courage to be messy while you're learning to walk in faith. All right, let me see if I'm missing anything else. So, if you're going to dare to shine as brilliantly as God has designed for you to shine, you are going to have to face up to the fear that maybe your form of brilliance might be just a little bit too bright for other Christians too right now. And that's okay. But You're either going to blind them with your brilliance, but there's a small chance that maybe you inspire some of them too. And that's what we're meant to do for each other. We're meant to, as Christians, gather ourselves together on a regular basis and exhort one another to the work of the ministry, to let God's power flow through us in big ways. I can't answer that question for you. That's something that you'll have to sit with yourself, but I encourage you to. All right. In case we're meeting for the very first time, my name is April Bragg, and I am the Time Rich Woman Coach. And if this is something that you really need some clarity on, then I invite you to book a clarity call. I will put the link in the comments below, but let me just spell it out in case you don't want to go to the comments. It's aprilbragg.as.me/clarity. I need to find a shorter URL for that. I'm having some tech problems with my website at the recording of this video, but I'm sharing that with you directly in case I don't get it all cleared up before this video goes live. But one of the things that God has given me and that I am so enjoying sharing with others is the opportunity to sit beside another person and say, and highlight to them, oh, that right there, that's your brilliance. Did you not see that? Oh, I see. I think you were calling it a flaw. And so if the Holy Spirit is prompting you, I might need that. Then I encourage you to go ahead and book a call. All right. Talk to you later. Bye bye.